Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Community Eligibility, Continue to Provide Free Meals to All Students for Years to Come. At this point, it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to our moderator for today, Allison Perez. Allison, if you're ready, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Trevor. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Allison Perez, and I am a Child Nutrition Policy Analyst with the Food Research and Action Center, or FRAC. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation. We know how busy everyone is, and we really appreciate your interest and participation. We wanted to host this webinar because of the upcoming community eligibility election cycle and season, and we want to make sure that community eligibility is on everybody's radar. The goal of this webinar is to discuss the basics about community eligibility, to hear from speakers about their experiences running community eligibility in their districts, to go over FRAC's community eligibility resources, and to answer any questions you may have. We have a full agenda today with great speakers, so now I would just like to briefly go over the schedule for our webinar. First, I am going to give a brief overview of community eligibility, how it works, and how it can be a great resource to provide free, healthy school meals to students in your district. Next, I'm really excited to hear from our great speakers about their experiences with community eligibility. First, we'll hear from John Gaddis, who is the Superintendent of Schools for Somerset County Public Schools in Maryland. Next, we will have Michael Sharp, who's the Executive Director of School Nutrition for Bibb County School District in Georgia. Following our speakers, I will discuss some of the many great resources that FRAC has compiled to help schools and districts best optimize community eligibility for increased participation and federal reimbursements. We will save questions for the end, so please feel free throughout the webinar to use the Q&A function located on the left of your screen to ask questions of the speakers or myself. So without further ado, let's start talking about community eligibility. So the Community Eligibility Provision, or CEP, allows high poverty schools to provide free breakfast and lunch to all students without collecting meal applications. Schools are reimbursed based off of the proportion of low-income children in their school district. Eligibility and reimbursement is based off of the percentage of identified students. And any school district can use this option if at least one of its schools has 40% or more students certified for free meals without an application, who are also known as identified students. Identified students include those who are in two categories: children who are directly certified for free meals through data matching because of their households receive SNAP, TANF, or FDIPR benefits, or in some states, Medicaid benefits, and children who are certified for free meals without an application because they are homeless, migrant, enrolled in Head Start, or in foster care. And while we are continuing to push for the extension of the summer waivers that have been so crucial this school year and throughout the pandemic for next school year, CEP election is still an important process to lock in higher ISPs that we have seen during the pandemic for 4 years so that schools and districts can continue to serve as many free meals as possible beyond the pandemic. Districts can participate in one of three ways. Individual schools that have an ISP of at least 40% can participate on their own. Districts can also group together multiple schools in any way, and there's no limit to the number of groups within a school district. However, the group, when average the ISPs together, when you create the ISP for for the entire group ISP must be at least 40% or more. And then the third way that school districts can participate is district-wide as a single group, as long as the district-wide ISP is at least 40%. So an example of a grouping, as you can see on the slide, is if you have a school with if you look at school number 1 that has an ISP of 50, but then you have school number 2 with an ISP that is below 40%. So it is near eligible, but not quite eligible. And then you have another school, school 3, that has a 75% ISP. What you can do is you can take the number of identified students in that group, you add it together, and then compare it to the enrollment of that group and create a group ISP of 59%, which would allow the group to participate in community eligibility, even though one of the schools within the group is not at 40%. ISP is multiplied by a factor of 1.6 to determine the percent of eligible meals that will be reimbursed at the free rate. The remaining percent of meals are reimbursed at the federal paid rate, and there is no reduced price category under CEP. And just a quick note, the 1.6 multiplier approximates the free and reduced price percentages since school meal applications are no longer collected. So for the current school year, which is the 2020-2021 school year, we have seen that there are 32,632 schools operating community eligibility nationwide, which reaches 15.1 million students. And this is an increase of nearly 2,000 schools from the previous school year. And we are also happy to announce that USDA has extended the waivers for community eligibility for the upcoming school year to extend the timeline for both notifying eligible schools and districts of their eligibility to participate and for those schools to elect into CEP. So some of those dates are from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. So anytime during the current school year, identified student percentages must be established for determining the eligibility and claiming percentages to be used. And then state agencies can notify school districts of eligibility status and provide guidance and information from any point between the current and during the current school year, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, excuse me. On June 30th, 2021, state agencies must post the district-wide and school-level lists on their websites to indicate schools eligible for CEP for the following school year, which is the 2021-2022 school year. And then by September 30th, 2021, interested and eligible school districts must notify their state agency of their intent to participate in CEP. Now, with all of that, I am pleased to present our first speaker, John Gaddis of the Somerset County Public School District in Maryland. Take it away, John.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's an honor to be here and be able to share the story of Somerset County. While I begin my brief remarks, let me tell you a little bit about Somerset. Somerset County is located on the lower eastern shore of Maryland. We are on the Chesapeake Bay, and basically when we tell people where we are, if you've ever been to Ocean City, Maryland, we're about 1 hour at max west of that. And so that's how people find us. Somerset is a system, or a county rather, that has about 25,000 people that live in it. We are a system of 9 schools and approximately 3,000 students. We have been working and involved in CEP for the last 5 years. As a superintendent, I tell people that it is the best decision that I ever made. Our free and reduced rate was approximately 81%. And when you look at it across Maryland, that is either number 1 or number 2 with Baltimore City. We flip-flop based on our poverty rates. And in many ways, we are number 1 in many things you don't want to be number 1 in. And when we started looking at the problems we were having, there were a couple things that drew me to CEP. We decided that as we had a number of Title I schools and we had schools electing not to be part of that, we started looking at what were the main issues that we had in the school system. And I have been in the system, this is my 8th year as superintendent, and what kept coming up from my principals was meals. And students, number 1, were coming to school without anything. They didn't have money. We had some folks who believed in what we call oops meals, which I did not believe in as a principal or actually just as a human. I wanted everyone to have a well-balanced meal, and I wanted them to be full at the end of our shifts. So this was brought to me, and I brought a group of people together, and I can tell you in my 8 years, this has been the one thing that has changed the conversation. It has changed us so much and has been so positive. And I want to give you some of the things that we have found out that it's really helped us with. Number one, the increase in meal participation. We all know that there is a stigma that comes with this. I was raised as an elementary principal, and I saw it all the time, even at the elementary level. Whether you were free or reduced, having to bring the money out, not having the money, something being said to you, having to punch in your numbers, having to do all these things, and also having parents who frankly could not fill out all the forms. It was a barrier to our students eating, especially at the high school level. Students were not going to return that form. And when your Title I funding is based on a form being turned in, that was a problem for us. So we started looking at this and we said, what can we do to remove that? We decided to go 5 years ago as a full system. That first year, we increased meals served by about 125,000 meals. That also meant our reimbursement was up, and we were able to take our food service department into a positive setting where they were able to become self-sufficient. But more importantly, our students were eating. The parents were saving money. We were making sure that they had well-balanced meals. And what happened was they'd come to school and have a breakfast. We served in the classroom. We'd have a lunch that was in the cafeteria setting. And it was incredible to watch even students who used to pack now participating in the program. It was something that was much better than mom or dad or whoever is in the household forgetting to pack something and stopping by and buying a honey bun and a soda and sending that to school. So number one, our students were eating better. We saw instantly a reduction in discipline referrals. And I always tell folks, remember, inside, we're all wired basically the same. And
Hey, John, I think we lost your audio.
Hi, John. I think you might have muted yourself.
oh, I'm sorry. I think I should be good now. So what happens is students weren't eating the night before. They were coming in, not getting breakfast. Referrals were always a problem in the morning. We saw an instant decrease in referrals. We saw increased academic achievement. We saw students that were more focused. They were on task. And we started to see, especially in the morning, especially in our high school, better attendance. And we just started to see increases that now over 5 years, we can say confidently, and we can show the data that this program has helped us. It's become such a norm in our county that we provide an update every month to our Board of Education so that we can see where we are and how it's impacting things. One of the biggest issues we had, and I mentioned it briefly, was attendance. We still find today, currently through this pandemic, we are back face-to-face with approximately 70% of our students 5 days a week for full days. And we see that our attendance has continued to be at a clip that is very impressive. It's above the 94% level that's required. And many students will tell you it's because of the meal program. We know that they're at least getting 2 meals a day when they come to our school system. They enjoy the meals, and it's worked out incredibly well for us. As we've worked through and we've gotten a better understanding of this program, it is something that we have tried to take across the state. We were the first system in the state of Maryland to move toward this, but I can't tell you enough, and I don't want to be redundant, but I will be for this one thing. It is incredible the impact this has, not only on your school community, but your community in general. Food insecurity is something that, from my perspective, is not talked about enough. And I still struggle talking to other superintendents, not only in my state, but across the country, about why they should do this program, why it impacts students. number one, our students are getting fed, and that was our goal. But to see the increase in attendance, the decrease in discipline, the increase in academic achievement, students better understanding quality meals in the meal plate, health referrals are down. It has been a tremendous program for us and something that we encourage you. You can check out our website for Somerset County Public Schools. We're proud to be a CEP district. And again, if I can ever be of any assistance to anybody, please reach out to us.
All right, thank you, John. That was incredible. Well, now I'd like to pass it over to our next speaker, to Michael Sharp of Bibb County School District in Georgia. Take it away, to Michael.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so very much. I'm happy to be here, and I am just amazed to hear that presentation by John, because as an operator, the absolute best place that we could ever be is behind the superintendent who is passionate about food, who is on board with the program, who is working together with us as operators to make sure that the children of the district have exactly what they need. And that is the same place that I sit in Bibb County, Georgia. My superintendent, our leadership team is we are one. We work together collectively always to see what is best for the children of Bibb County and the community. And CEP was in this district prior to my coming here, but I did come from a district that we also had CEP. But I want to talk about it a little bit from the operator perspective, because I think John has done just a fantastic job in making our jobs as operators easy, because he believes in the school nutrition program, he believes in CEP, and he believes in the coordination of care for children, which I see food and education as a coordination of whatever children need. So I'll tell you a little bit about Bibb County Schools in Georgia. We have 36 schools. Our current enrollment is about 21,000 and some children, right about close to 22. But what we have right now is a combination of services. We have a face-to-face that children are in school 4 days a week, and they're in virtual on Wednesday. They're in the actual classroom Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. We also have a cohort where some of the children are in face-to-face learning on Monday and Tuesday, and they are in virtual learning on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then there's a second cohort, or cohort B, where those students are in face-to-face learning along with the regular ones on Thursday, Friday, and they are in virtual learning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So our 100% virtual learning students, we have about 7,000 of those, and it is a great time just to talk about how we move and shake as operators to make sure that our children, no matter where they are, whether they're face-to-face or they're on a cohort or they're virtual, how they still have food. And I just wanted to touch bases on that, even though our main purpose right now is to talk about CEP. I don't really need to go over the CEP overview because Allison did a great job of talking about that, but just to touch bases with why CEP is an outstanding program, because like we said, it allows low-income schools to offer meals to all students at no cost. And that's a constant push that we in school nutrition are moving toward. Every year we're trying to bring that subject up again about how do we get, whether it's CEP or Provision 2 or Provision something else, how do we get children to be able to eat and not have to worry about the financial implications on parents. And the pandemic, of course, has brought about a lot of need. We've talked about, you heard John talk about the food insecurity. That's a subject we as operators have been discussing for many, many, many years. And our circumstances in 2020 has added to our needs for school nutrition programs and for us to find ways to extend our offerings to to children and their families. Some of the main things to consider, I heard John talk about, and I'm going to keep referring to it because his presentation was great. It was, like I said, it's the best place to come is behind the superintendent who is on board with the program. You heard him talk about a school district that was improved financially when CEP was implemented. So some of the main things to consider when you're looking at whether your district should be doing CEP is to look at your current percentage of students that are directly certified. And Allison went through that group, the homeless, migrant fosters, SNAP, TANF, and then there's a Head Start piece. But you want to look at how many students do I currently have that are directly certified, because that's going to be your data that you're going to use. You also want to look at how many free students, not because you can use that data for your ISP, but because as you start to look at your bottom line, you want to know that you will be able to have enough children qualify for the 40%. So when you put your factor with it, you will be positive. You'll be in the black as you finish with your CEP. And the reason that that's important is because, as Allison said, there is no reduced category. So you've got all free, and then you've got your paid category. And you don't want that paid category to be too high. So I'll talk a little bit later about mixing groups like she showed in the grouping to be able to get your numbers to where you need them, so that once you combine your CEP, whether it's district-wide or groups, you will have a high percentage of children that will be eating at the free rate. One thing to note is any differences between that federal reimbursement, the cost of operating CEP has to be covered by non-federal funds. That's one of the main reasons you want to group or do whatever you have to do to get your CEP percentages at a high rate. That's my next slide here. I think I skipped one, sorry. 1 second. Some of the amazing benefits about CEP you've heard already. John talked about the stigma. He talked about increasing access to food to children, not having students have to stand in line and pull out money and other children are seeing them. And, no matter what we think and what we say, children, see these things. They feel how others are looking at them. They feel embarrassed at times to have to, in front of their friends, indicate, oh, I'm a free child, or my parents, the perception is don't have what's needed, so I get my meals free from the school nutrition program. And so the CEP normalizes that environment. And from the standpoint of that alone, to me, is what's most important, because we want all of our children to eat, but we want our children to come into the cafeterias, into the dining room areas, and be happy and not feel any kind of embarrassment when they come in. The financial increases that can be obtained by being able to do CEP is just amazing. You heard John talk about the percentage increase. We in Bibb County, since I've been here, we've seen about a 10% increase from what I'm told when they initially started CEP back in 2014-15, that there was about 10 to 15% increase in the participation. Depending upon your district, it could be upwards of as much as 20 to 25%. It really just depends on what your district makeup is. But the improvement in efficiency in operating the programs, you don't have to worry about meal applications. That's a burden, as you heard John say. No one wants to bring back that piece of paper. People are always a little bit skittish about putting their financial data down, who's going to see it, where is it going to go. And I think this has been something that we've been challenged with over the years. But having a program like CEP does away with that. It also eases the administrative burden that we have on evaluating applications, on having to do financial transactions at the register, needing to have change, if you are a district that takes cash for the reduced and the paid meals. The multiple options for counting and claiming that come along with being able to do CEP makes it much easier as well, because there are tally sheets and there's clickers, and there are the POS that you can identify each child, that you just have to ring them in. So there are some options that you can use for your counting and claiming methods as well that make things a lot simpler. The impact of 2020 when we talk about CEP. So when we got waivers, we actually moved on to the seamless summer option like most districts around the country, because that made it easier for us to operate, to serve students. So we didn't actually function under the National School Lunch Program, so we weren't utilizing our CEP numbers this year. And in 2021, we're in that school year now. We're still operating, of course, under the seamless summer option. What are we going to do in 2022? That's a big question. But I think I skipped a slide. I think I need to go back. I apologize. I think it showed on the screen, but I wanted to make sure that I just touched a little bit on the grouping, because that was one of the things that they wanted me to make sure that I talked about. And here is that slide. Initially, when Bibb County went to CEP in the school year of 2015, it was always district-wide at 99.1. A recertification was done in 2016, and that number went up to 99.12. Then we recertified again in 2019, and at that point we had grouping. Allison talked to you already and showed you an example about how to put together the groups. When you have students that move around, schools that rezone, you sometimes need to redo your numbers. And when we did that in 2019, our numbers went from 99.12, and we actually ended up with 3 groups that ranged the lowest group at 95.01 to the highest group at 98.39. So financially, that was a little bit of a loss when it came to our federal reimbursement. So as the opportunity to redo our groups or redo our numbers again in 2020, it was a difficult time, being that we were in the middle of the pandemic, but it was also a time when our families were experiencing some extreme challenges financially. So we found that it was a great time for us to take advantage of the waiver, because we also had a waiver in the 2020 school year to allow us to determine the best time to take our numbers all the way up to June 30 of 2020. So we did that, and we were able to get our district-wide number up to 100%. So I would suggest, as an operator, it takes a while to get this done, but even if you do it 1 year and you don't get to where you would like to be, I would suggest taking a quick look at your numbers for the next year. And, as you pull down your direct cert numbers from your state or wherever you get yours from, you can kind of just keep track to see how many children do you have that are on the categorical programs. And you might be able to redo your numbers halfway between the cycle each year until you get to where you want to be. But the program is so beneficial, and in a district like ours at 100%, we certainly, at the time that the waivers are not in place, will return to our National School Lunch Program and our 100% CEP numbers. And I'm back to Allison.
Thank you to Michael. That was incredible. And I can't stress enough how important the whole grouping situation that Michael was discussing is for so many schools. And that is a perfect segue into my next topic, which is some of the resources that FRAC has put together to help schools and districts determine how to best implement community eligibility for their financial needs and for their participation needs. And one of those is a really great tool that we're very proud of that allows you to upload a list of schools in your district, including their ISPs, including their number of identified students and the number of enrolled students. And this tool will allow you to select what your ideal or goal ISP is for each group so that you can maximize the ISPs and therefore the financial reimbursements from the federal government that you get for each group. And this is something that you can do at our FRAC CEP website, which is fraccep.org, where you can create an account and start uploading data now. I do want to reiterate what Michael just said about the cycles for CEP. When a school or a district elects to participate in CEP, they are participating in a cycle of 4 years. And what that essentially means is that the first year that you elect into CEP, you lock in your ISP and participation for CEP for the next 4 school years. You do not have to recertify or reclaim your ISP every year if your ISP goes down. However, if your ISP does go up, you are not required to stick with your old ISP during your cycle. You can restart a new cycle, and so every time you claim an ISP and start your cycle, that ISP is good for the next 4 years. So that is a brief overview on that, and our grouping tool is an excellent tool that we have to help schools and districts to figure out what groupings make the most sense for their situations. And then another group of tools that we have on this website are our financial calculator tools, which are both available in Excel form and in the web form, which is new. Last year we only had the Excel form, so we're very excited to be able to bring these forms, these tools, these calculators to schools and districts so that they can figure out how to make CEP work financially for their district. And so we have 3 calculators. We have a break-even calculator, which is essentially sort of the highest level calculator that allows districts to go in and plug in their labor costs and their food costs and how much participation they get and their number of average school days. And essentially, it gives you the amount of participation that you would need to break even at each level. Next, so that we have the district level calculator, which, like the break-even calculator, is available both as a web form and as a Excel form. And the district level calculator is a little bit more granular and allows districts to plug in all of the schools and see how using similar data as the last tool, but with a little bit more granularity, see how to make CEP most profitable and to maximize reimbursement rates for those schools. And then the last tool that we have is a school level calculator, and that is only available in Excel, which you can download on this website, but it is not available in web form because it is so granular. But all of 3 of these tools are a great resource for people to use. Next, I would like to talk about some best practices for making CEP work with lower ISPs, because, CEP is definitely a lot easier to implement when you do have a higher ISP. That makes it easier or brings your reimbursements closer to that target of 100% or 62.5 before the 1.6 multiplier. But CEP is such a crucial program that can work really well, even if you don't have such a high ISP. So some of those, which are available at the link at the bottom of the slide, which we'll share later, some of these are implementing breakfast in the classroom or another alternative school breakfast model to increase participation in breakfast, because the more participation you get, the more reimbursement you get. We also encourage schools to offer after-school meals through CACFP or through the National School Lunch Program. Suppers, all suppers that are and snacks that are given provided after school are reimbursed at the free rate. So that is another great way for schools to implement and maximize reimbursement, the amount of reimbursements that they're getting. It's also really great to track daily participation, just so you know where the fluctuations are and how things work like that. It's also great to engage students to determine their preferences and get them excited to participate, because, you know, it's when kids are excited about the school meals, they'll come and participate day in and day out. It's also, of course, on that same token, important to provide appealing, high-quality meals that the kids want to eat, and to promote the program to students, parents, and the community at large, so that they're aware that this really crucial resource exists to make sure that kids are provided and are receiving healthy, nutritious, and delicious meals at school. We have a list of other resources that are available on the FRAC website, which there is the fraccep.org, which has our financial calculator tools. But on the FRAC website, there is also a page that is dedicated specifically to community eligibility and some of the one-pagers and documents and other resources that you can find. So some of those include taking a fresh look at community eligibility, which I shared in the announcements page, and that is essentially just a one-pager talking about the deadlines and pointing out some great resources. And there's a great way to just sort of encapsulate everything in one page. We have another entire document that goes into some of the best practices on making CEP work at lower ISPs that I just discussed on the last slide. We also have a database that contains a list of all of the schools and districts that are participating in CEP nationally. And that is a database that was uploaded with current data for the current school year as of yesterday. So that is brand new, and we are very happy to be able to share this information. And that is data that is available on our website in the database in web format. And if you would like to use it for your own purposes, it is available to be downloaded in an Excel file format. We've also shared the USDA Community Eligibility Resource Center, a document entitled Direct Certification Improves Low-Income Student Access to School Meals, an updated guide to direct certification, because your CEP numbers and your ISP is really only as good as your direct certification levels. So frequently updating your direct certification to make sure you have an accurate representation of identified students is super important to making sure that you're maximizing your reimbursements. And then, of course, we have another one-pager on school district strategies for improving direct certification. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our audience for questions. We have some questions already in the Q&A function on the left side of your screen, but if you have any questions that have come up throughout the course of our presentation, please feel free to continue to put those in the Q&A. And then I'll start off by asking John to please repeat all of the benefits of CEP that he has seen in his district.
Sure thing. We have seen increased attendance, increased meal participation, increased academic achievement at all levels, a decrease in office referrals, a decrease in nurse visits, and increased financial return for our food service department.
Thanks, John. And really quickly, I also want to answer a question about ISP. So this question reads, the ISP needs to be 40% or more to participate in CEP, correct? Is the ISP only students that are eligible for free meals, or can this ISP number include students who are eligible for reduced price meals? So this is a great question, because so the number of identified students in a given school or district actually refers to the number of students who are directly certified for free school meals. So this is without an application. These are students who are eligible for free school meals because they are participating in another means tested program. So some other means tested programs are SNAP, TANF, FDPR. In some states, they use Medicaid as certification as one of the programs for direct certification. And then some of the other distinctions that allow students to be automatically eligible for free meals are if they are experiencing homelessness, if they are migrant children, or if they're in the foster system. So unfortunately, reduced price students who are eligible for reduced price meals are not taken into consideration for ISP, but that is because they are not directly certified. So if there are students who are eligible for free meals even, but aren't participating in a means tested program that allows them to be directly certified, those students are not considered for the ISP. The ISP is solely based off of the number of directly certified students in a school or district. And then I have another question, which is, if you are a single school and the only school in your district, can you still group other schools' data in your area to qualify CEP? And the answer to that question is yes. If you have a single school that is eligible for CEP and you can group other schools that are near eligible, so when I say near eligible, there's a distinction between schools that are eligible because they have an ISP of 40%, and then there are schools that have an ISP between 30 and 40% are known as near eligible. And so if there are schools that are near eligible, that when you group them with a school with a much higher ISP that is eligible, as long as the group ISP for that group is higher than 40%, then you can create a group with some of those schools and have them participate in CEP, if that makes sense. And then I have a question. Can we use May direct certification numbers rather than April numbers? I think Michael or John, do you have any insight onto that?
Hi, this is Michael. If we are saying, because we have a waiver, we now can wait any point between where we normally would be having to pull April 1st, but because we have a waiver that allows us to continue to look at the numbers until June 30, if that's what you mean by can we use May versus just April, then the answer would be yes. If that's not the question, then could we get some clarification on the question?
Thanks to Michael. And I have another question about offering guidance for private schools to participate in these programs. And if John or to Michael have anything to say about that, they can go ahead, but I will just say briefly, there is no restriction on what kind of school is able to participate in the National School Lunch Program or the School Breakfast Program. So if a private school is choosing to participate in the National School Lunch Program and they have an ISP that is higher than 40%, they are more than welcome to participate in CEP. In fact, when we were analyzing the data for this year, we have seen that across the country, there are many private schools that have chosen to operate CEP if they are currently operating the National School Lunch Program and they have an ISP over 40. So we have another question about the difference between universal free meals and achieving CEP eligibility. And is there a policy that can enhance CEP? And that is a great question because, you know, there is a big difference between universal free school meals and CEP. CEP is targeted to schools in high poverty areas and low income communities where you have a large percentage of students who are directly certified for free meals under another means tested program, which is very different because a school elects into CEP and is participating, giving free meals to all of the students at that school, they are still only receiving the free reimbursement at the federal level for the 1.6 times their ISP. So the number of 1.6 times the percentage of identified students is the percentage of meals that they serve that will be reimbursed at the free rate, which means that the difference has to be made up if they're not receiving 100% free meals at the free reimbursement of meals at the free rate. Whereas under universal school meals, that would provide all students at all schools, regardless of their income level, access to meals, and those would be reimbursed at the free rate. And I know if you have any more specific questions about that, please feel free to answer them in the Q&A box. I hope that answers your question. And then we have another question about direct certification from California, which includes both free and reduced price students. And we are saying that only the free students that pull in the report can be used for ISP and not the reduced price students that are directly certified as well. So direct certification should only indicate the students who are eligible for free meals. There should not be students directly certified at the reduced price category. So again, it is only students who are qualified for free meals because they are participating in a means-tested program who are eligible to be considered identified students for the purposes of the community eligibility. And then we have another question about our CEP database. Our current direct certification data and eligibility data and participation data for the current school year on our website is for the current school year, which I phrased that strangely. Let me repeat that, rephrase that rather. On our website, we have a database of schools that are currently participating in CEP nationwide, and that data is for the 2020-2021 school year. So that is the latest data for the current school year that you can find, that was uploaded and updated just yesterday with all 50 states plus the District of Columbia with their information. So Pat, if you're still listening, that is up on our website and it is currently live. All right, we have another question about Provision 2 versus CEP, and I would be interested to hear from either John or Michael about what they have to say regarding this. And so the question is, any updates on any waivers regarding Provision 2 eligibility? We are trying to see if we can't take a school CEP, then could they qualify for Provision 2? Do you have any insight as to Provision 2 versus CEP, John or Michael?
This is to Michael. I don't have any updates regarding any waivers regarding Provision 2 or other at this point, other than what has already been released. But in making the determination on if CEP is better or Provision 2 is better, I would encourage that if your numbers aren't high enough for CEP, that you do look at Provision 2, which was why I kind of mentioned that, because the process is different and the qualifiers are different. So you could end up with a school that has all free meals or meals served at no charge. I don't want to say all free meals. Meals served at no charge under Provision 2, and that might still be a beneficial program for you, even if you don't have enough directly certified children, because you're looking at different subsets of data. So I think both programs are good. CEP, is one magnificent program, but the other option, I think provisions are also.
Thanks to Michael. We have another question about using direct certification for other programs. It says USDA seems eager to coordinate with other federal agencies. And, you know, we are always very much encouraging of the expansion of direct certification to other programs. You know, as I mentioned earlier, there are some states where Medicaid is used as a direct certification program, but as always, we are constantly in conversation with advocates across the country in our state and local partners to encourage state agencies to look into this. And we also have conversations with USDA about this. So that is a great question. And I wish I had more information to provide, but yes, we are definitely on board with that. And then again, it looks like we've answered everybody's questions that we've seen so far, but if you have any more questions, please enter them in the Q&A box. In the meantime, I have a question for both of our speakers. And the question is this: if you could distill your argument down to one point in favor of schools and districts participating in CEP, what would that be?
That's a tough question.
It is.
I'm going to say ladies first and be a gentleman.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate that.
How kind of him.
I know. I want to say availability of food at no charge for all children.
I want to buy even more time.
That's my one answer.
Can you repeat the question for me again?
All right, John, no problem. If you could distill your argument down to one point in favor of CEP, what would it be?
Wow. I would go, I think I would say the opportunity to provide one of the most basic human needs in the school setting.
Well, I think given how difficult the question was, I think you both answered it very well. And I'm not sure that I could have come up with something as succinct myself. So I thank both of you for playing my little mind game. And I thank also the audience for all of their incredible questions and for their attention today. If there aren't any more questions, I am going to go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. Thank you to all of you for joining us today, and a special thank you to both John and to Michael for joining us and to sharing their incredible expertise. The recording and the resources mentioned today will be shared in a follow-up email. And in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Michael or John if you have any questions about anything that we've discussed today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon, and I will hand it over to Trevor.
Very good, very good. On behalf of FRAC, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today and for your participation. I'd also like to thank our presenters for sharing their expertise. At this point, we'll ask that you take a brief moment to fill out the survey that will appear on your screen momentarily. We appreciate your feedback, any feedback that you can provide. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you all have a great afternoon.